The Valiant charged toward the alien shipyard like a bull seeing red. Every weapon was armed and ready. Every crew member stood at their station, hands steady despite the fear running through their veins. They had trained for this. They were ready. 30 seconds to weapons range, Danny announced from navigation. Jake gripped his chair. This was it. No turning back now. All batteries prepare to fire on my command. The shipyard grew larger on the screen. It was massive, pulsing with that strange organic light. As they got closer, Jake could see movement on its surface. Ships were launching, dozens of them, pouring out like insects from a hive. The aliens had spotted them. Multiple contacts, Amy called out. Counting 40 enemy vessels. No, wait, 50, they keep coming, 50 ships. The Valiant was one ship, damaged and exhausted. But Jake did not hesitate. Kate, light them up. Show them what we brought. The Valiant opened fire with every weapon it had. Railguns roared, sending streams of modified ammunition toward the enemy. Lasers painted the darkness with beams of deadly radiation. Missiles launched in waves, their engines burning bright. The ship had become a moving fortress of destruction. The modified weapons worked better than Helen had predicted. The first alien ship to take a hit simply fell apart, its organic hull unable to heal from the poisoned ammunition. A second ship, caught by one of the modified laser beams, withered and died like a plant without water. The aliens were dying faster than they had in the first battle, but there were so many of them. The alien ships swarmed around the Valiant, firing from all directions. The shields flared and sparked as energy beams hammered against them. Greg watched his power reading spike dangerously high. The shields were holding, but he did not know for how long. Launch fighters, Jake ordered. Ron, you are clear for the rescue mission. In the hangar bay, Ron Hayes climbed into his fighter one last time. Behind him, Lisa and 30 Marines loaded into a heavy assault shuttle. They wore combat armor and carried enough weapons to start a small war. Their faces were set with determination. They knew the odds. They were going anyway. Good hunting, Commander, Ron said over the radio as his fighter launched. Same to you, Lieutenant, Lisa replied. Try not to get shot down before we finish our part. Ron led his fighter squadron out into the chaos. The space around the Valiant was a storm of fire and death. Alien ships dove and weaved, trying to hit the human vessel. Ron's fighters intercepted them, drawing them away, protecting the path for the assault shuttle. Stay with me, Ron shouted to his pilots. Cover that shuttle. Nothing gets through. 3 alien ships turned toward the shuttle, their weapons charging. Ron's squadron hit them hard, lasers and missiles tearing into organic hulls. One alien ship exploded. The other 2 broke off, retreating to regroup. The shuttle made it through, racing toward the shipyard. Back on the Valiant, the battle was getting worse. More alien ships kept launching from the shipyard. Kate's weapons crews were performing miracles, hitting target after target, but there were just too many enemies. The shields were failing section by section. Hull breach on Deck 9, a voice reported. Fires breaking out on Decks 12 and 13. Damage control teams respond, Jake ordered. Keep those fires contained. An alien ship got past the defensive fire and rammed directly into the Valiant's side. The impact threw everyone on the bridge forward. Alarms blared. The lights flickered and went out, replaced by emergency red lighting. Jake tasted blood in his mouth. Status report, he demanded. Main power is down, Greg's strained voice came through, switching to backup systems. We have fires in the reactor room. I am working on it. On the main screen, Jake watched the alien ship that had rammed them pull back. It was badly damaged but still alive. The Valiant's armor had held, but just barely. Another hit like that and they would be in serious trouble. Target that ship, Jake ordered Kate. Make it pay for that. Kate's fingers flew across her console. The Valiant's forward railgun fired, catching the alien ship right in its center. The modified ammunition did its work. The ship came apart in chunks, pieces spinning off into space. Meanwhile, Lisa's shuttle reached the shipyard. The structure was enormous up close, with dozens of openings and docking bays. Ron's fighters had cleared a path, and the shuttle pilot flew straight for the nearest entrance. They landed hard inside a massive organic chamber that looked like the inside of a living creature. Move out, Lisa ordered, and the Marines poured out of the shuttle, weapons ready. The interior of the shipyard was like a nightmare. The walls pulsed with bioluminescence. Strange sounds echoed through the corridors like breathing or heartbeats. The Marines moved in formation, following the scanner that Lisa carried. It showed hundreds of human life signs deeper in the structure. They encountered the first aliens in a wide corridor. The creatures were tall, with multiple limbs and skin that seemed to shift colors. They carried no visible weapons but moved with predatory grace. The Marines opened fire immediately. The aliens fell, but not before releasing some kind of gas that made breathing difficult, even through the combat armor filters. "Keep moving," Lisa ordered, pushing through the gas. "We do not have time to fight everything we see." They ran through the shipyard following the scanner. The human prisoners were being held in a central chamber. As they got closer, they started seeing signs of what the aliens had been doing. Medical equipment, examination tables, computers displaying human biology. The aliens had been studying the prisoners, experimenting on them. Lisa felt rage building inside her. These creatures had taken innocent people and used them like laboratory animals. She promised herself that this shipyard would not survive the day. They reached the holding area. It was a massive chamber filled with cells made of some kind of organic material. Inside the cells, human prisoners huddled together wearing torn clothing, looking thin and scared. When they saw the Marines, many began crying with relief. "United Earth Military," Lisa announced. "We are getting you out of here." Can anyone move on their own? Many of the prisoners were weak but could walk. Others needed help. The Marines began opening cells using plasma cutters when the organic locks would not respond to their attempts. Lisa counted heads. Nearly 600 prisoners, just as the sensors had indicated. "We have incoming," one of the Marines shouted. More aliens were approaching, drawn by the noise. "Set up a defensive position," Lisa ordered. "Hold them off while we get these people moving." The Marines formed a line, weapons pointed down the corridor. When the aliens appeared, they unleashed everything they had. The corridor became a killing ground, but the aliens kept coming, wave after wave of them defending their facility. Back on the Valiant, Jake watched his ship being torn apart piece by piece. The shields were gone. The armor was breached in a dozen places. Fires burned throughout the ship. They had destroyed over 30 alien ships, but more kept coming. "Sir, we cannot hold this position much longer," Amy said, her voice shaking. Jake knew she was right. The Valiant was dying, but they had to hold out long enough for Lisa to complete her mission. Just a little longer. That was all they needed. "Greg, what is the status of Reactor 4? Jake asked. "Failing," Greg replied. "The coolant system is damaged. If it melts down, it will destroy half the ship." An idea formed in Jake's mind. A terrible idea, but maybe the only one they had left. What if we let it melt down? What if we overload it deliberately? There was silence on the other end for a moment. Then Greg understood. "We could use it as a bomb. Set it to explode and evacuate that section. But Captain, if we lose Reactor 4, we will barely have enough power to limp home." "We will worry about getting home after we win this fight," Jake said. "How long do you need?" "Give me 5 minutes," Greg said. Those 5 minutes felt like hours. The Valiant took hit after hit. More crew members died. More systems failed. But the ship kept fighting. Kate's weapons crews never stopping, never giving up. They had come too far to fail now. "Reactor 4 is overloading," Greg finally announced. "Everyone out of Section 8. We have 3 minutes before it blows. All ships pull back from the shipyard," Jake broadcast to Ron's fighter wing. "We are about to give the enemy a very big surprise." Inside the shipyard, Lisa heard the message through her helmet radio. "Marines, we are leaving now. Everyone who can walk, walk. Everyone who cannot, we carry. No one gets left behind." The prisoners stumbled toward the shuttle, Marines supporting the weak and wounded. The aliens tried to stop them, but the Marines held the line. 3 Marines died, buying time for the prisoners to escape. Their sacrifice would not be forgotten. The shuttle was packed beyond capacity, people pressed together in every available space. The pilot did not wait for clearance. He fired the engines and launched, flying out of the shipyard just as the Valiant's reactor reached critical mass. The explosion was like a small sun being born. The reactor detonated with incredible force, tearing through the heart of the shipyard. The entire structure shuddered and began to break apart. Sections collapsed inward. Ships still being grown were destroyed in their berthing chambers. The aliens' facility, their source of new vessels, was dying. Jake watched on the screen as the shipyard tore itself apart. Dozens of alien ships were caught in the destruction, crushed or burned or torn to pieces. The stars outside the massive window looked like tiny diamonds scattered across black cloth. Jake Morrison stood with his hands behind his back. watching the workers in their spacesuits attach the final pieces of armor to the giant ship. He had dreamed of this moment for 20 years. Now it was finally happening. The ship was called the USS Valiant. It was the biggest warship humanity had ever built. 3 kilometers long, bristling with weapons and powerful enough to travel faster than light itself. Jake would be its captain. At 42 years old, he had earned this command through blood, sweat, and more battles than he cared to remember. Next to him, Commander Lisa Hayes tapped on her electronic pad. She was reading through the list of crew members who would serve on the Valiant. 8,000 people would call this ship home. 8,000 souls who would trust Jake to lead them through whatever dangers waited in the darkness of space. The final crew assignments are complete, Lisa said. Her voice was calm and professional as always. We have the best people from every fleet in human space. These men and women are ready for anything. Jake nodded but said nothing. He knew what was coming. Everyone knew, even if they did not speak about it openly. Humanity had spread across 12 star systems in the past 100 years. They had built colonies on distant worlds and thought themselves safe. But something was out there in the darkness. Something that did not want humans in its territory. 3 alien races had made contact with humanity. 2 were friendly enough, trading technology and staying peaceful. The third group was different. Nobody knew what they looked like or where they came from. Human intelligence officers called them the Void Collective because they seemed to appear from nowhere and disappear just as quickly. The Void Collective had been attacking human colony ships. Not military vessels, but civilian transports full of families looking for new homes among the stars. 5 ships had vanished in the past year. No survivors, no wreckage, just gone as if they had never existed. Earth Command had tried diplomacy, tried sending messages, tried everything except fighting back. That was about to change. Down in the engine room, Chief Engineer Greg Palmer was checking the fusion reactors one more time. The Valiant had 6 of them, each one capable of powering a small city. Greg had spent 3 years designing these systems. He knew every wire, every circuit, every bolt. If something went wrong with the engines, Greg would fix it or die trying. On the weapons deck, Kate Sullivan was running her gunnery teams through another drill. Kate was the best weapons officer in the fleet, and she made sure everyone knew it. Her teams could hit a target the size of a football from 1,000 kilometers away. The Valiant carried enough firepower to destroy a small moon. Kate intended to use every bit of it if the enemy gave her a chance. The hangar bay was full of activity. Small fighter craft sat in neat rows being checked and rechecked by their pilots. Lieutenant Ron Hayes walked among them, inspecting each ship personally. Ron had been flying fighters for 15 years. He had trained most of the young pilots who would fly under his command. They respected him because he never asked them to do anything he would not do himself. In the medical bay, Dr. Carl Jensen organized his supplies and equipment. Carl had served on 5 different ships before the Valiant. He had seen combat injuries, radiation sickness, and diseases from alien worlds. His job was to keep the crew healthy and alive. He took that job very seriously. The medical bay had 200 beds and equipment that could perform any surgery known to human medicine. Carl hoped he would never need to use most of it. The communication center buzzed with activity as Lieutenant Sarah Kim tested every system. Sarah could speak 6 human languages and had learned 2 alien languages as well. If the Void Collective ever decided to talk instead of fight, Sarah would be ready. She had prepared messages in every form of communication humans understood. Mathematical sequences, visual patterns, radio waves, everything. So far, the enemy had not responded to any of them. Admiral Paul Bennett arrived at the Neptune orbital shipyard 3 days before the scheduled launch. He was an old man now with gray hair and tired eyes. He had fought in the border wars 30 years ago and carried the scars to prove it. Jake met him at the airlock and saluted. "Captain Morrison," the Admiral said, returning the salute. "Walk with me." They moved through the corridors of the shipyard, heading toward Jake's temporary office. Workers nodded respectfully as the Admiral passed. Everyone knew who he was. He had commanded fleets, won impossible battles, and lost more friends than most people ever made. Inside the office, Admiral Bennett sat down heavily. He looked even older up close, as if the weight of command had physically pressed him down over the years. "I have bad news," he said without preamble. "Another colony ship is missing. The Meridian disappeared 4 days ago near the Kepler border. 400 families, Jake, men, women, children, all gone." Jake felt his jaw tighten. The Kepler border was the edge of human space where colonies were newest and most vulnerable. It was also where the Void Collective seemed to focus their attacks. Earth Command has made a decision, the Admiral continued. The Valiant will launch ahead of schedule. Your orders are to proceed to the Kepler border, locate the Void Collective, and show them that humanity is not prey. We are done running. We are done hiding. If they want to fight, we will give them one they will never forget. Jake stood up straighter. This was what the Valiant had been built for. This was why 8,000 people had volunteered to serve on a warship heading into unknown danger. When do we launch? Jake asked. Tomorrow at dawn, Admiral Bennett said. I know it is sooner than expected, but we cannot wait any longer. Every day we delay, more families are at risk. The Valiant is humanity's answer to the darkness. Show them what humans can do when pushed too far. That night, Jake stood on the observation deck again. The Valiant was complete now, fully armed and ready for war. Lights glowed from thousands of windows along its hull. Inside, 8,000 crew members prepared for departure. They checked weapons, ran system tests, said goodbye to loved ones over video calls, and tried not to think too hard about what waited for them in the black. Lisa Hayes joined him at the window. She did not say anything, just stood beside him in silence. They had served together for 10 years. She knew him well enough to know when he needed quiet company instead of conversation. Do you think we are ready? Jake asked finally. Lisa considered the question carefully before answering. No one is ever truly ready for war. But if humanity has to fight, I cannot think of a better ship or a better crew to do it. Jake nodded. She was right. The Valiant was the most powerful warship ever built. Its crew was the best humanity could offer. If they could not stop the Void Collective, no one could. Tomorrow we launch, he said quietly. Tomorrow we find out what we are really made of. The stars outside continued to shine, cold and distant and uncaring. Somewhere out there in the darkness an enemy waited. The Valiant would find them. And when that meeting finally happened, the galaxy would learn what it meant to threaten humanity. The 6 alien ships hung in space like predators waiting to strike. Their hulls seemed to breathe, pulsing with a light that moved in patterns across their surfaces. Jake had never seen anything like them. They were beautiful in a terrible way, like watching a storm roll in across the ocean. Channel open, Captain, Sarah Kim said, her voice steady despite the fear Jake could see in her eyes. Jake took a breath and spoke. This is Captain Jake Morrison of the human vessel Valiant. We do not wish to fight. We want to understand why you are attacking our people. For a long moment there was only silence. Then every screen on the bridge flickered. Images appeared, pushed directly into their systems by the alien ships. Jake watched in horror as the screens showed human colony ships being destroyed, families floating dead in space, children's toys drifting among the wreckage. The message was clear. The Void Collective was showing them what they had done. And then came the final image, a simple symbol that needed no translation, a red X over a picture of a human. The meaning could not have been more obvious. Humans were not welcome here. Humans had to leave or die. They are not going to talk, Lisa Hayes said quietly from her station. No, Jake agreed. They are not. He stood up from his chair. Kate, do you have firing solutions on all targets? Kate Sullivan's hands moved across her weapons console. Yes, sir. All targets locked. Waiting on your command. Jake looked at the alien ships one more time. Part of him wanted to run to save his ship and crew, but he thought about the 400 families from the Meridian. He thought about all the other colony ships that had vanished. Someone had to stand up to these creatures. Someone had to say enough. Fire a warning shot across the nearest ship, Jake ordered. Show them we can fight back. Kate pressed a button. One of the Valiant's railguns fired, sending a hypervelocity projectile screaming past the closest alien vessel. The shot missed by 100 meters exactly as intended. It was a warning, a last chance for peace. The alien ships did not respond with words. They responded with fire. All 6 vessels opened up at once. Beams of purple energy lanced through space, slamming into the Valiant's shields. The bridge lights flickered as power diverted to defensive systems. The whole ship shook from the impact. Shields at 80%, Greg Palmer's voice came through the intercom from engineering. They are hitting us with some kind of focused energy weapon. I have never seen power readings this high. Return fire, Jake ordered. All weapons, hit them with everything we have. The Valiant came alive with violence. Railguns fired, sending streams of metal projectiles toward the enemy. Laser batteries carved red lines through the darkness. Missiles launched from tubes along the hull. their engines burning bright as they raced toward targets. For a moment, the space around the Valiant looked like the inside of a fireworks factory. The nearest alien ship took the full force of the assault. Railgun rounds punched through its hull, tearing huge holes in the organic structure. Lasers burned into its flesh, leaving blackened scars. The ship's bioluminescence flickered and died. It tumbled through space, leaking atmosphere and fluids. "One down," Kate announced with grim satisfaction. But the other 5 adapted instantly. They changed their attack patterns, focusing their fire on specific sections of the Valiant's shields. It was coordinated, intelligent, exactly what Helen had warned them about. These ships could think and learn. "Shields failing in Sector 7, Amy Stone called out. "They are concentrating fire on one spot. Divert power from other sectors," Jake ordered. "Do not let them break through." Greg worked frantically in the engine room, rerouting power systems, pushing the reactors harder than they were designed to go. The shields held, but barely, and then the aliens changed tactics again. Instead of focusing on one spot, they spread their fire, hitting multiple sections at once. "They are adapting to our defenses," Lisa said. "They learn too fast." A beam of purple energy punched through the weakened shields and struck the Valiant's hull directly. Armor plating vaporized. The ship shuddered violently. Alarms blared across multiple decks. "Hull breach on Deck 17, a voice reported over the intercom. "Sections 40 through 43 are open to space. Damage control teams responding." Jake gripped his chair as the ship shook again from another hit. They were hurting the enemy, yes, but the aliens were hurting them worse. This fight was not going the way he had hoped. "Launch fighters," Jake ordered. "Tell Ron to get his people out there. We need to draw some fire away from the main ship." In the hangar bay, Ron Hayes was already strapping into his fighter when the order came through. He had been expecting it. His pilots were ready, engines warmed up, weapons armed. The hangar bay doors opened, and the fighter wing launched into the battle. 50 small fighter craft swarmed out from the Valiant like angry bees. They split into groups, diving toward the alien ships. The fighters were fast and hard to hit. The aliens turned some of their weapons toward this new threat, exactly as Jake had hoped. Ron led his squadron straight toward the largest alien vessel. His fighters' guns blazed, stitching lines of fire across the enemy hull. It was like shooting at a living creature, and Ron tried not to think about that too much. The alien ship turned to face him, and he saw what might have been eyes, huge oval shapes that seemed to track his movement. Then it fired, and Ron threw his fighter into a wild spin, barely avoiding the energy beam. "Stay scattered," Ron shouted to his pilots. "Do not give them easy targets." "Hit and run, people!" "Make them chase you." The battle became chaos. Fighters darted between capital ships, firing and dodging. The alien vessels tried to swat them like insects while also maintaining their assault on the Valiant. It was working, spreading the enemy fire thin, but pilots were dying. Ron watched 3 fighters explode in balls of fire, their pilots given no time to eject. Back on the Valiant's bridge, Jake made quick decisions. "Target the second ship from the left. All forward weapons concentrated fire. Kate, make that ship regret coming here." The Valiant's weapons focused on a single target. The alien ship tried to evade, but it was not fast enough. Railgun rounds tore into it from multiple angles. Lasers carved deep wounds. A missile made it through the ship's defenses and exploded inside the hull. The alien vessel broke apart, separating into pieces that drifted away slowly. 2 down, Kate said. 4 to go, but the celebration was short-lived. The remaining alien ships pulled back slightly, regrouping. For a moment, the firing stopped. Jake watched them on the screen, wondering what they were planning. "They are coordinating." Helen's voice came over the intercom from her lab. "I am picking up electromagnetic pulses between their ships. They are communicating, planning something." "Shields are down to 40%, Greg reported. "We cannot take much more of this, Captain." Jake knew he had to make a choice. They could keep fighting and possibly destroy another alien ship or 2. But the Valiant was badly damaged, more hits like the last one, and they would start losing entire sections of the ship. Hundreds of crew members could die. On the other hand, if they ran now, they would be showing weakness. The Void Collective would learn that humans could be driven off. They would become bolder, attack more colonies, kill more families. "Sir, they are powering weapons again," Amy warned. "I think they are about to resume firing." The 4 alien ships began glowing brighter, their organic hulls pulsing with energy. They were preparing for another coordinated strike, one that might break through the Valiant's weakened shields completely. And then something unexpected happened. The aliens stopped. Their weapons powered down. The bioluminescence on their hulls shifted to a different pattern. And slowly, one by one, they turned away from the Valiant. Their engines flared, and they jumped into faster-than-light travel, vanishing in flashes of distorted space. The battle was over as suddenly as it had begun. The Valiant hung in space, damaged but alive. Around them, the debris of 2 destroyed alien ships drifted among the wreckage of the Meridian. "What just happened?" Lisa asked, voicing the question everyone was thinking. Jake stared at the empty space where the alien ships had been. They retreated. They chose to run rather than finish the fight, but why? Kate asked. They still outnumbered us 4-2. Helen's voice came through again, excited now. "Captain, I think I know. We destroyed 2 of their ships. We proved we could hurt them." Maybe they did not expect that. Maybe they thought humans would be easy prey and we showed them otherwise. Jake nodded slowly. It made sense. The Void Collective had been attacking unarmed colony ships. They had probably never faced real military resistance before. The Valiant had bloodied their nose and they had backed off to reassess. "Get me a damage report," Jake ordered, "and bring the fighters home. We need to regroup." As the surviving fighters returned to the hangar, Jake counted them. 37 had come back. 13 were gone. 13 pilots who had given their lives to protect the ship. Ron Hayes was among the survivors, his fighter's hull scorched but intact. The damage reports came in over the next hour. 47 crew members dead, over 100 wounded, entire sections of the ship exposed to vacuum. Multiple systems damaged or destroyed. The Valiant had survived, but it had paid a heavy price. Jake walked through the damaged corridors later that night. He saw repair crews working frantically. The launch ceremony was brief and serious. No celebration, no cheering crowds. Admiral Bennett stood at attention as the Valiant's massive engines roared to life. The giant warship pulled away from Neptune Orbital Shipyard like a metal mountain moving through space. Jake Morrison sat in the captain's chair on the bridge, watching the shipyard grow smaller on the main screen. "Course is set for the Kepler border," Lieutenant Danny Pierce announced from the navigation station. Danny was young, only 26, but he was the best navigator in the fleet. He could plot a course through an asteroid field blindfolded. "Estimated travel time is 11 days at maximum cruise speed." "Take us out, Lieutenant," Jake ordered. "Let us see what this ship can really do." The Valiant accelerated smoothly. The artificial gravity kept everyone firmly on their feet. But the speed was incredible. They were traveling faster than anything humans had built before, yet it would still take 11 days to reach the border. Space was simply too vast for quick journeys. Dr. Helen Wright was already hard at work in the science lab. She had been studying the Void Collective for months, trying to understand them from the few clues they had left behind. Energy signatures from their weapons, radiation patterns from their engines, anything that might give humans an advantage. "The data is confusing," Helen told Jake when he visited the lab on the second day of the journey. She pulled up charts and graphs on her computer screen. "Look at these energy readings. They suggest technology far more advanced than ours. But here these patterns look almost biological, as if their ships are alive somehow." Jake studied the screens but could not make sense of the technical details. That was why he had Helen. She was brilliant, the kind of scientist who saw patterns where others saw only chaos. "What does it mean?" he asked. Helen shook her head. "I do not know yet. But I think the Void Collective might not build their ships the way we do. They might grow them like plants or animals. If that is true, then everything we know about ship combat might be wrong." The news was troubling. Human tactics assumed the enemy would fight like humans did, with ships made of metal and circuits. If Helen was right, they might be facing something completely different. As the days passed, the mood on the ship grew tense. Everyone knew they were heading toward danger. Ensign Amy Stone sat at her sensor station for hours at a time, watching for any sign of enemy ships. Sometimes she thought she saw something, a ghost on the sensors that vanished before she could confirm it. Each time her heart raced. Each time it turned out to be nothing. Commander Lisa Hayes walked through the ship every night after her shift ended. She talked to the crew, asked them how they were feeling, listened to their concerns. Most of them were nervous but determined. They had volunteered for this mission knowing it could be their last. That kind of courage deserved respect. One evening, Lisa found a young engineer crying in a maintenance corridor. The girl could not have been more than 20 years old. "What is wrong?" Lisa asked gently. The girl wiped her eyes quickly, embarrassed to be caught crying. I am sorry, Commander. I just keep thinking about the families on those colony ships. All those children who never got to grow up. What if we cannot stop it from happening again? Lisa sat down next to her. That is exactly why we are here. To make sure it does not happen again. Every person on this ship chose to be here. We are scared, yes, but we are also ready to fight for those who cannot fight for themselves. The girl nodded, taking strength from Lisa's words. She stood up, straightened her uniform, and went back to work. Lisa watched her go, hoping she had said the right thing. Leadership was not just about giving orders. It was about giving people a reason to follow those orders. In the fighter hangar, Ron Hayes ran his pilots through simulation after simulation. They practiced dogfights, bombing runs, emergency evacuations, everything he could think of. The pilots were getting tired, but Ron pushed them harder. In real combat, exhaustion could mean death. Better they learn that now in safety than later when it mattered. Again, he shouted after another failed drill. The enemy will not give you a second chance. You must be perfect the first time, every time. The pilots groaned but climbed back into their simulators. They trusted Ron because he had kept pilots alive in real combat before. If he said they needed more practice, they would practice until they could fly in their sleep. Greg Palmer spent most of his time in the engine room, monitoring the 6 massive fusion reactors. They were performing beautifully, better than he had hoped. The Valiant could maintain maximum speed for weeks if needed. But Greg was a pessimist by nature. He kept looking for problems, checking and rechecking every system. When you trusted machines with 8,000 lives, you could never be too careful. On the 8th day of the journey, they crossed into frontier space. This was the edge of human territory, where colonies were small and far apart. The Kepler border was still 3 days away, but already the feeling on the ship was different. Everyone knew they were getting close. Kate Sullivan increased the weapons drills. Her gunnery teams practiced firing solutions against computer-generated enemy ships. She timed them with a stopwatch, always demanding they go faster. In combat, seconds mattered. The difference between firing first and firing second could mean the difference between life and death. Dr. Carl Jensen prepared the medical bay for casualties. He hoped he would not need it, but he had been a military doctor too long to believe in hope. He trained his nurses and medics in trauma surgery, radiation treatment, burn care, everything they might need. The medical supplies were stocked to handle hundreds of wounded. Carl prayed they would not need even a fraction of it. Sarah Kim continued broadcasting messages into space. Mathematical sequences, radio signals, light patterns. If the Void Collective was listening, she wanted them to know humans were trying to communicate. So far, there had been no response. The silence was somehow worse than a threat would have been. On the 10th day, sensors detected a debris field ahead. Jake ordered the ship to slow down and approach carefully. As they got closer, Amy Stone gasped at her station. Captain, I am reading fragments of human technology. Ship parts, life pods, personal belongings. This is a wreck site. Jake's blood ran cold. Is it the Meridian? Helen Wright worked quickly, analyzing the debris. After 10 minutes, she had her answer. Yes, sir. This is definitely the Meridian. Or what is left of it. Jake ordered the Valiant to a full stop. They spent hours examining the wreckage, trying to understand what had happened. The colony ship had been torn apart with incredible violence. Weapon signatures showed energy levels far beyond anything humans could produce. Metal had been melted, vaporized, turned to plasma in microseconds. But there was something else. Helen found strange organic material floating among the debris. It should not have been there, should not have been able to exist in the vacuum of space. She collected samples and took them back to her lab. This is biological tissue, she told Jake after analyzing it, but not from any creature I have ever seen. The cellular structure is completely alien. I think this came from their ships, Captain. I think their vessels really are alive in some way. The implications were staggering. Living ships might heal themselves, might adapt to weapons fire, might think and react faster than computer-controlled vessels. Humanity was facing an enemy unlike anything they had imagined. Jake called a meeting of all senior officers. In the briefing room, he laid out what they knew. The faces around the table grew grim as they realized what they were up against. We are still going forward, Jake said firmly. These people came to kill 400 innocent families. They need to learn that humanity does not forgive and does not forget. We are going to find them and we are going to make them pay. The officers nodded in agreement. Fear was present, yes, but so was anger. The Void Collective had crossed a line. Now they would face the consequences. The Valiant moved deeper into the debris field, sensors scanning constantly, and then, without warning, Amy Stone's board lit up like a Christmas tree. Multiple contacts, she shouted. 6 ships emerging from faster-than-light travel. They are surrounding us, Jake jumped to his feet. Battle stations. All hands, this is not a drill. We have contact with the enemy. Alarms blared throughout the ship. Crew members ran to their positions. Weapons powered up. Shields activated. After all the preparation, all the training, the moment had finally arrived. On the main screen, the alien ships appeared. They looked nothing like human vessels. Organic shapes pulsing with eerie light, moving with fluid grace. Beautiful and terrifying at the same time. Jake stared at them, his hand resting on his chair. This was it. This was what they had come for. Open a channel, he ordered Sarah. Let us try one more time to talk. But even as he said it, he knew the truth. The Void Collective had not come to talk. They had come to kill. The Valiant limped through space for 3 days, following the energy trail left by the retreating alien ships. Every deck had repair crews working around the clock. Welders sealed hull breaches. Engineers replaced damaged systems. Medical teams treated the wounded. The ship was hurt, but it was not broken. Jake spent most of his time on the bridge, coordinating the pursuit while also managing repairs. Lisa brought him coffee and food, forcing him to eat even when he did not want to. She knew him well enough to know he would work himself to death if someone did not take care of him. You need to sleep, Lisa told him on the 3rd night. I will sleep when we find them, Jake replied, staring at the sensor displays. Jake, you are no good to this crew if you collapse from exhaustion. 4 hours. That is all I am asking. 4 hours of rest? Then you can come back and play captain again. He wanted to argue, but she was right. His eyes felt like they were full of sand. His head hurt. He had not slept properly since the battle, grabbing only short naps in his chair. 4 hours sounded like paradise. Fine, he agreed. Wake me if anything happens. He went to his quarters and fell onto his bed, still wearing his uniform. Sleep took him in seconds. He dreamed of alien ships and dying crew members, nightmares that followed him even into rest. Meanwhile, Helen Wright made a discovery in her lab. She had been studying the organic material collected from the destroyed alien ships. Under her microscope, she saw something incredible. The tissue was repairing itself, even though the creature it came from was dead. The cells were trying to rebuild, trying to heal. This is impossible, she whispered to herself. This should not be happening. She ran more tests, pushing the tissue samples to see what they could do. They could survive in vacuum. They could withstand extreme temperatures. They seemed almost indestructible. If the alien ships were made of this material, no wonder they were so hard to kill. But there was something else. When she exposed the tissue to certain energy frequencies, it stopped healing. It actually died, breaking down at the cellular level. Helen ran the test 3 more times to be sure. Each time the result was the same. She had found a weakness. She ran to the bridge, forgetting to even announce herself properly. Captain, I need to speak with you immediately. Jake was back in his chair, looking more rested than he had in days. What is it, Helen? She pulled up her findings on the main screen, showing graphs and charts that made Jake's head spin. I found a way to hurt them more effectively. Their ships are biological, but that means they are vulnerable to certain types of radiation. If we modify our weapons to emit these specific frequencies, we can do significantly more damage. Kate Sullivan leaned forward from her weapons station. How much more damage? Maybe twice as effective, Helen said. Maybe more. I cannot be certain, without more testing. But the tissue samples were completely destroyed when exposed to this radiation. If we can weaponize it, their ships will not be able to heal from our attacks. Can you do it? Jake asked. Can you modify our weapons? Helen nodded. With Greg's help, yes. It will take time, maybe 12 hours to modify all the primary weapon systems. The railguns can be adapted to carry special ammunition. The lasers can be adjusted to emit the right frequencies. But we need to stop moving. I cannot do this work while we are at full speed. Jake considered this. Every hour they delayed gave the aliens more time to prepare, more time to set a trap. But Helen's modification could be the difference between victory and defeat in the next battle. Do it, he decided. We will hold position here. Get started immediately. Helen and Greg worked through the night, barely stopping to eat or rest. They modified ammunition, reprogrammed laser emitters, tested and retested their work. Other crew members helped where they could, fetching tools, running cables, holding equipment. It became a ship-wide effort. While the weapons were being modified, Danny Pierce made his own discovery. He had been tracking the alien energy trail carefully, mapping where the ships had gone. The trail led deeper into uncharted space, toward a region where human ships rarely traveled. And then, after 3 days of pursuit, his sensors detected something massive. "Captain, you need to see this," Danny said, pulling up a sensor image on the main screen. What appeared was enormous, a structure orbiting a dead star. It was roughly circular, maybe 50 kilometers across, with strange, organic-looking architecture extending in all directions. It pulsed with the same bioluminescence as the alien ships. "What am I looking at?" Jake asked. Helen joined them on the bridge, wiping grease from her hands. She had been in engineering helping with the weapon modifications. Now she stared at the screen in wonder. "It is a shipyard," she said softly. "They are growing new ships there. Look at these readings. There are dozens of vessels in various stages of development. Some are small, like the ones we fought, but others are huge, much larger than the Valiant." Lisa pulled up more detailed scans. "I am also detecting human life signs. Hundreds of them, maybe more. They are keeping prisoners there." The bridge went silent as everyone processed this information. Prisoners meant survivors from the colony ships, people who had been taken instead of killed. But for what purpose? "We need to get them out," Kate said immediately. "Agreed," Jake said. "But we are one damaged ship facing a fortified position with who knows how many enemy vessels. We should call for backup, wait for a fleet to arrive." "That could take weeks," Lisa pointed out. "Those prisoners may not have weeks." Jake knew she was right. He also knew that attacking that shipyard was likely a suicide mission. But he thought about the families on the Meridian, about the children who had died in the cold of space. If there were survivors, human beings being held prisoner by these creatures, then he had a duty to try to save them. He looked around the bridge at his crew. They were exhausted, wounded, scared. But they were also ready. He could see it in their eyes. They had come this far. They would not turn back now. "Greg, what is our status on the weapon modifications?" Jake asked. "Almost done," Greg's voice came through the intercom. "Another hour, maybe 2. Then we will be ready for whatever you need. Lisa, work with Kate on an attack plan. I want to know every possible way we can hit that shipyard. Danny, find me an approach vector that gives us the best chance of getting close before they spot us. Helen, keep analyzing that structure. I want to know its weak points. Ron, get your pilots ready. This is going to be the fight of their lives." "What about the prisoners?" Lisa asked. "We cannot just blow up the shipyard with them inside." Kate spoke up. "We need a boarding party, a team to go in, locate the prisoners, and extract them while the Valiant keeps the enemy busy." "I will lead it," Kate volunteered immediately. Jake shook his head. "I need you on weapons. Your gunnery crews are the best we have." "Then I will lead it," Ron said. "My pilots can provide cover for the Valiant. Give me a team of Marines and I will bring those prisoners home." Jake considered this. Ron was a good leader, brave and smart. But he was also valuable as a fighter pilot. Losing him could cripple their fighter wing. "I will go with you," Lisa said. "You focus on flying. I will command the boarding party." "Absolutely not," Jake said immediately. "I need my first officer on the bridge." Lisa looked at him steadily. "With respect, sir, you need someone you trust to get those people out alive. That is more important than having me on the bridge. You can command the ship just fine without me for an hour or 2. Jake wanted to argue, but he knew she was right. Lisa was the best choice to lead the boarding party. She was tough, smart, and would not leave anyone behind. But that did not make it any easier to send her into danger. "Fine," he agreed reluctantly. But you take plenty of Marines with you, and you come back alive, Commander. That is an order. Lisa smiled slightly. I always follow orders, Captain. Over the next few hours, the plan came together. The Valiant would approach the shipyard at high speed, weapons blazing. The goal was to cause maximum chaos and destruction, forcing the aliens to focus on defending their facility. While they were distracted, Ron would lead a squadron of fighters to escort a boarding shuttle to the shipyard. Lisa and her Marines would enter the structure, locate the prisoners, and extract them. It was a desperate plan with 100 things that could go wrong, but it was the only plan they had. Greg finished the weapon modifications with an hour to spare. He tested the systems personally, making sure everything worked perfectly. The railguns now fired special ammunition that would poison the alien organic material. The lasers emitted radiation that would prevent the ships from healing. The Valiant had teeth, and now those teeth had venom. Carl Jensen prepared the medical bay for mass casualties. He cleared out space for potentially hundreds of rescued prisoners. Many of them would likely need immediate medical attention. Some might be dying. Carl made sure he had enough supplies to handle anything. His medical team stood ready, nervous but determined. Sarah Kim prepared messages to send to the prisoners once they got close enough. Simple instructions on where to go, how to reach the extraction point. She hoped the prisoners would still have the strength to move, to fight for their freedom. She hoped they had not given up. Jake stood on the bridge one more time, looking at his crew. They were ready. The ship was ready. In a few hours,